So this is my assigned topic, which is the pre-colonial and Spanish. First is the two types of literature. So when we talk two types of literature, which is first is oral literature. Literature, literature is a literature that is spoken or sung, as opposed to that which is written through much oral literature has been transcribed. The second one is the written literature. So when we talk written literature, it is a term used to describe written and sometimes spoken material from the Latin word literature, meaning writing form with letters. Literature most commonly refers to the works of the creative imagination, including poetry, drama, fiction, non-fiction, in some instances journalism and song. The literature of affirmative past by the various groups of people who inhabit the archipelago, a literature of varying human interests, close to the religious and political organization of the ancient Filipinos. The verses were addressed to the ears rather than eyes. The types of written literature is proverbs or sawikain, chants, songs, folk tales, fable, epic, legend, and myth. Example of ancient Filipino poetry is Dalawang balon hindi malingon. Sa araw ay bunbong, sa gabi ay dahon. Sang dalagang marikit nakaupo sa tinik. Kung biyaya'y nabubuhay, kung himasay namamatay. Riddle or bugtong, made up of one or more measured lines with rhymes and may consist of 4 to 12 syllables, showcase that Filipino wit, literary talent, and keen observation of the surroundings, involves reference to one or two images that symbolize the characteristic of an unknown object that is to be guessed. Purpose of bugtong: to entertain living and promote in remote areas. Before the advent of electricity, families would sit around the fire and elders would quiz the younger generation with riddles. To educate, riddles serve the function of passing down knowledge from one generation to the next. They require thinking in order to solve them. To telltale, many old Filipino riddles contain double entendres that were intended to amuse, then mean and shock the woman. To curse without expressly cursing. A riddle could be made up again an enemy rival town of Sweater. To perceive the culture riddles. Communicate the old ways from one generation to the next. Example: ate mo, ate ko, ate ng lahat ng tao. In English is my sister is your sister in everyone. Sister. And the answer is the atis, or in English is sugar apple. Salawikain or sawikain. Examples ay epigrams of maxims, proverbs. Short poems that have been customarily been used and serve as laws or rules on good behavior by our ancestors. Allegories are parables that impart lessons for the young, often expressing a single idea that is usually satirical and had a witty ending. Maxism reading couplets 5, 6, 8 syllables. that you use. Example of salawikain. Ang matapat na kaibigan, tunay na maasahan. In English, you will know a true friend in a time of need. Example of sawikain. Kumukulo ang dugo, blood is boiling, is very angry. Kanang nasuko. Isulat sa tubig, write on water, forget about it. Kalimutan or kalimtan. Example of maxims. Pag hindi ukol, hindi bubukol means what is not intended for one will not bear fruit. Bulong or chant. Used in with witchcraft or enchantments. Sa hinaba-haba ng prosesyon sa simbahan din pala ang tuloy. Hili-hili bago keme. Halimbawa or for example, tabi-tabi po kung makikiraan ko lamang. Kasabihan or sayings. Used in tasting or to comment on a person's accusation. Katibay katulos sakaling datnang agos. Ako inmumunting lumot sa iyo'y pupulupot. Nag-almusal mag-isa, kaning lamig tinapa. Nahulog ang kutsara, ikaw na sana sinta. Ambahan, usually chanted. Teaches lessons about life, recited by parents to educate their children, by the youth to express their love, by the old to impart experiences, or by the community in tribal ceremonies. On some occasions, like burial rites, the ambahan is used for entertainment. Myths derived from Philippine folk literature, which is the traditional oral literature of the Filipino people. This refers to a wide range of material due to the ethnic mix of the Philippines. There are many different creation myths in the Philippines mythology, originating from various ethnic groups. Story of Bathala, Visayan version, the legend of Maria Makiling. Presence of different deities. Example, Bathala or Lakambakod. Mythical creatures. This the picture. Kanang sino siya? First is the aswang, dila, diwata, dewende, tikbalang, o mankukulam. So this one, the picture, which is, this is the aswang, then this is the dewende. Okay. Ancient metrical tales. Ifugao, hudhud ni Aliguyon. Ilocos, biag nilamang, Bicol, Ibalon, Mindanao, Darangan, Panay, Hinilawod, Bagubo, Tuaang, Kalinga, Ulaliim, Manubo, Agyo or Ulahing, Subanon, Sandayaw. Then this is the Ibalon Festival. Here is the picture. Then Hinilawod, this is her traditions. Folk song. Another folk song is a form of folk lyric which expresses the people's hopes, aspirations in lifestyle, or tradition songs and melodies, inspired by the reaction of the people to their environment. Uyayi, lullaby, kumanting war song, kundi man melancholic love song, harana, serenadi, tagay drinking song, mambayo, kalinga rice pounding song, Sumbali dance, song of marriage, Tuwali song of the dead. So this is the song of the ancient Filipino. Characteristic of the Filipino literature during the pre-colonial period. First is oral tradition, growth of ideology and phraseology. Third is precious hopes in inspiration. 4. It's explain how the world created. 5 is cultured. Filipino literature under the Spanish colonization in the Philippines started in 1565 during the time of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi as the first Spanish governor general in the Philippines. So, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi is the first Spanish governor in the Philippines. Literature started to flourish during his time. The Spaniards colonial in the Philippines for more than 3 centuries. The Spanish colonizers wanted to undermine the native oral tradition by substituting for it the story of the Passion of Christ. However, the native tradition survived and even flourished as areas inaccessible to the Spaniard. The church authorities adopt a policy of spreading the church doctrines by communicating to the natives in their own language. So this is the book of the Doctrina Christiana. The first book to be printed in the Philippines was a prayer book written in Spanish at Tagalog. So in our modern right now is our praying book is the Bible, the Holy Bible, right? Yung sa kanila is the Doctrina Christiana. The task of the translating religious instructional materials forced the Spanish missionaries to employ native as translator. Eventually, these natives learned to read and write both in Spanish and their native tongue. Ladinos or bilingual natives, that is the tongue of them. They publish their works, mainly devotional poetry, in the first decade of the 17th century. Gaspar Aquino de Belen is one of the Filipino translator. He is a Filipino translator or the famous poet and translator in the 17th century. He wrote the Mahal na Pasyon ni Hesus Kristo, a Tagalog poem based in a Christ Passion was published in 1704. So he wrote the Mahal na Pasyon, or it is the Tagalog poem. In the 18th century, secular literature from Spain in the form of medieval ballads inspired the native poetic drama called the Commedia. Later to be called Moro Moro because they often dealt with the theme of Christian triumphing over Muslims. So this is Pedro Alejandro Paterno, named Pedro Alejandro Paterno de Vera Ignacio. He wrote the first Filipino novel in 1885 and published on 1908. Written as a response to the accusation that Filipinos possessed no distinct culture, Ninay was written in a tradition of costumbrismo, a movement in Spanish literature in the 19th century. Next is the first Filipino novel was The Ninay. In Spanish by Pedro Paterno. So this is the book of The Ninay. It's the novel. Then the next is prominent figures during Spanish colonial period. Francisco Balagtas Baltazar, also known as Francisco Balagtas, in 1788-1862. As the acknowledged master of the traditional Tagalog poetry, known as Prince of Filipino Poet, he is the father of the Balagtasan. Well, as we know that he is the father of Balagtasan. His narrative poem, Florante at Laura, written as Sublime Tagalog is about tyranny in Albania, but is also perceived to be about the tyranny in his Filipino homeland. So this is the book of Florante at Laura. Next, Jose Rizal in 1861 to 1896. Name Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonzo Realonda. He was born on June 19, 1861. Political party, La Liga Filipina Katipunan. Ang dakilang manunulat, he is the Philippine national hero, as we all know. Result 2 novels which is The Nolin Mitangere and its sequel to El Filibusterismo, chronicled the life and ultimate death of Ibarra, a Filipino educated and abroad who attempted to reform his country through education. Inspired by Rizal, in 2 novels were addressed Bonifacio in 1863 to 1897, and his closet aide Emilio Jacinto, 1875-1899. Both were writers and social critics who are profoundly influenced by the liberal ideas of the French Enlightenment. The 11 facts of Andres Bonifacio, which is first, Emilio Aguinaldo was the one who killed Andres Bonifacio. 2. Bonifacio was hacked to death with a bolo. 3. He made his first declaration of independence inside a cave. 4. Bonifacio is a theater actor. 5. Bonifacio or Suka, State of the Katipunan Address. 6. Bonifacio was a middle-class Filipino. 7. Bonifacio was self-educated. 8. His favorite food is nilechong sa saha. He has only the existing photograph. 10. Bonifacio was dressed as a woman. 11. He fought with a revolver, not a bolo. Leona Florentino was a Filipino poet in the Spanish and Ilocano language. She is considered as the mother of the Philippine women's literature. She married in the age of 14. Her husband is Elias de los Reyes, became the foremost Ilocano writer of the time. Her family left her because of the feminist writing. Some works Some of her works, which is the Blast Fed Hopes, Nalpayaan na Mana, Naangaw na Kablaw, Leon, etc. Were colonial in the play during the Spanish colonial time. Sinakulo sa Lubong Sugat, Panonuluyan, Zarzuela, Tibag, Lagaylay, Carelio, Moro-Moro, Shanite, Karagatan, Duplo, Balagtasan, Awit, Kurido, Dungaw. The pre-colonial folk song during Spanish colonial time, Leron-Leron Sinta, Pamun Linawin, Dandansoy, Sarong Banggi, Atin Kopong Singsing. And that's all. Thank you.